Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Amy Lykosh. She's an author, mentor, and entrepreneur with a passion for prayer in the workplace. We'll talk more about this through workplace prayer. Uh, she covers businesses in prayers and raises up intercessions to do the same. And she lives in Charlottesville, Virginia, with her husband and 5 sons. Welcome to the show, Amy.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show, Amy. Welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about the power of workplace prayer with you. We'll all understand about this. But before we learn about this, let's understand a bit more about you, Amy, about your background, about your journey, so that people know who little bit more about who they are listening to.
Yeah, thank you. So, my parents started a business and they asked their employees if they would want to pray every day. So, I grew up thinking that prayer in business was very normal. And then, about 30 years in, I wanted to know how to do it more effectively. And so, I went looking for people who could maybe help me on that journey. And so, when I found who's now my business partner, he was able to teach me more about how to pray effectively. And so, about midway through the month, the first month that I had met him, I was like, we need to get this more broadly. There needs to be more people who know about this. And so I've been working with him now for a few years, and it's my pleasure and my joy.
Right, right, Amy. So let's understand. We'll understand about this power of workplace prayer. What is this power? Workplace prayer. Pray everywhere. We can pray anywhere. Sometimes we need to go to church. In India, we go to temples. Many people go to their own places of worship. But God is everywhere. We all know that. So
Mhm.
I want to understand. What is this workplace prayer?
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized was that many people don't actually think about praying for their businesses or where they work. I think we know that, yeah, as you said, we pray at church or we pray in the maybe in our homes or just privately, but we don't usually think, oh, we can go and actually pray for our places of work. It's almost like there's a black hole that we don't think about it. We've never even considered it. And yet God cares about our businesses as well. He cares about where we work and what we do. And so that I guess that would be the first place to start, would just be to say, God actually does care about this. And so when we say, oh, I actually want my business to prosper, I want more clients that I could help and serve, I want to be able to have wisdom that God sends. All of these are very natural requests, but I don't know that we all think to make them.
Right, right, Amy. So, uh, for the Western world, the power of prayer in a workplace is a bit, uh, maybe a bit different. But if I share with you something from India, for generations and many generations, businessmen, all those people who have their workplaces, most of them they start their day, with praying in their workplace. So if you ever get a chance to visit India, even a small shop, you'll find they will have some idol or something, whatever they believe in, and actually invoke that and start the day with the day that may God bless my business, may God, you know be take care of everything, and that it is a good day. But it's not that if it's not a good day, they are not full. They again with the full enthusiasm they start the second day. And in fact, recently we had this festival called the festival of lights. Diwali was there. Diwali actually is the day when actually our earlier on the financial those calendars used to change. People used to change their accounts basically in traditional businesses and new accounts, and they used to pray God, Goddess Lakshmi on that day, and several others. So they, in fact, in many places today, they have on every Diwali they have a big prayer in the workplace itself. Either in offices or in in small establishments and all. So this is just to help you, understand a bit about the cultural. So we understand the power of God into businesses, but from a Western world of, let's understand this. A lot of people say, we should not bring friendship into business. Why bring God into business then? Help us understand from that perspective.
Well, since God created us, then He cares about what we're doing. So the to have God come and say, I have solutions for your business. I have thoughts about this. I loved hearing that that's very normal there in India, that people start the day in asking a blessing over their work. I think that would be tremendous if we in the West would be able to even get to that level. That would be astonishing. But I can't imagine, actually, to me, having I guess having friends and maybe the conflicts of interest that might develop if you're in business with a friend, I could see that that could be challenging. But God is not the same as a human friend. So that would be, I think that's
Right.
probably comparing apples and oranges or whatever two unlike fruits would be there in India.
Right, right, Amy. So help us understand now the power, this whole prayer thing. A lot of people in India, perhaps they know it in their own way, and in not just India, in other places also. But for those people, those businesses who may believe this idea, how do they get this done? How do they get started with this whole prayer thing in their workplace? How do you do it in what you do with your clients?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. So, one of the things that I always like for people to recognize is that we talk to God, but that He also talks to us. And so, when we're asking questions, we should actually expect that we're going to get an answer back. And so, those answers can come in a range of different ways. And I don't know that we always recognize how to access those answers. So, whether it's a dream at night or whether it's a little picture that we have in our minds or whether we get a creative idea that is so much more interesting or unexpected than we normally would think, all of those are really beautiful ways that the Lord speaks to us. And so I think even just being open to recognize what it is that is coming back as opposed to just what we're saying to God.
Right. So how do people do it? Is they Do they have to call some priest? Do they have to uh, can do themselves? Is it a 1 minute thing? Is it a 5 minute thing? What is the practical way to do this in any business establishment? Or is it working? Does it work only some business establishment? Can it work for big businesses only? Can it work for mid-sized businesses, IT business, or it works in every business that is possibly there?
Yes, I love that question. So, practically, of course, we don't need to ask God long prayers. We don't need to follow a formula. I think sometimes single word prayers like help or thank you, those are beautiful prayers. And then those sometimes there's longer things where it's like, I just need to actually talk through what I'm thinking about and I need to explain or just even process through a part of my day. For us at Workplace Prayer, we both train people in how to pray for businesses, but we also actually pray for businesses. So that's actually our job, and what we have clients who partner with us, and so we have teams that we deploy every day in order to cover businesses in prayer. They don't do it; they don't go to the businesses; they just pray. And usually our teams will pray together for an hour a day, and they will pray out of the scriptures. In our case, we use the Bible, but they'll also just ask whatever, as I was saying, whatever thoughts or pictures come to mind, they'll also pray about those.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, say a small business
Mhm.
or anyone else. Now, they may know, they may not know. But you talk about, this whole outsourcing of the prayer business. If you tell any Indian, it's not a bad idea. In fact, a lot of people can do it. We do it in so many aspects of our lives. Not that we can't do it. Also, we also do it along with the priests. But I'll come to that later. But first, let me understand your perspective on this. What is this outsourcing of prayers? And how does that work? What is your business model on this? Because some people may find it differently, and that is where
Yes.
you need to help them understand your whole business around it, and that it is a good business, not a bad business.
It's true, not a bad business. The so outsourcing is a really interesting word because obviously each of us has our own relationship with God. So just like I can't outsource my relationship with my husband, I can't outsource my relationship with God. So I want to make sure I'm clear that we're not saying that we are in we're not taking over anybody's relationship. On the other hand, the way that I would think about outsourcing here in the States, if there is an issue where, let's say I was talking to a woman and she and her business, they provide food service for, let's say, a large engineering firm. So she said the engineering firm, their goal is to do the work of engineering. And so if they try to hire people for the cafeteria to prepare meals for lunch so the employees don't have to go offsite, that really isn't their primary focus. Their primary focus is the engineering. And so she said, if you have specialized training, or if you're doing something that is kind of outside the normal realm of what that business is dedicated to, both of those are really good reasons to outsource. But it doesn't mean, of course, that the engineers don't ever have to go and eat. It doesn't mean that, or like cook food for themselves when they're at home. So there's, I would say what we do is we say we are actually really well trained. We've been equipped. It is what we do full time. This is what we think about every single day. And so for us, it's like, well, we recognize that our business owners, they're doing other things. They're doing real estate. They're serving in the food industry. And so while they're working, we're praying. And then when they feel the need, then they also pray, of course. We're not restricting that in any way, but because I think some people just feel like they need actually a little bit additional prayer coverage. I felt that for myself when I was working with my parents. So that, I guess that would be my answer.
Right. And any particular sort of business that you work who are more in trouble, less in trouble, or less, no trouble, so that you don't put much God in much trouble, so that He doesn't have to come and rescue that business. How does that work?
So basically, at least for now, if somebody wants prayer coverage, we want to pray for them. So we're really not going to say like, oh, we think that the Lord hates your business. There might be some things that people are doing that are not completely ethical, but we also trust that the Lord can sort that out. We don't need to be the arbiters of that.
Right. And if they say, listen, Amy, we are capable of praying for our own business, how do you tell them that, listen, I can pray better, my team can pray better? Does it come to that, or generally they understand this whole idea that someone else is praying for them? It is a business, but it is a concrete sort of a good thing.
Yeah, so I don't know that I would ever say, or I would not want to say that we pray better. We have been trained, and so, but I think God actually loves each of us. So I feel like each of us, when we come to God, He just loves us, and so there's not a like, well, we have the gold star of being better prayer people. We have been trained, so we recognize certain maybe patterns because we have more experience, but. It's kind of like saying maybe one child is better at cooking because they've had more experience, but the parent isn't like, well, that's now clearly my favorite child, right? All the children get to be their parents' favorites. Just because somebody has a greater skill in a particular area doesn't affect how much the Lord loves them. So, uh, anyway, I guess I just wanted to make sure that we do love praying and we love praying for other people, but I don't know that this concept is terribly well established here in the States. And I don't know if it's really established anywhere globally, but I think the idea of saying more prayer is actually a good thing and often can be in alignment with somebody's values. Just like for my parents, they said, oh, we treasure prayer. And this is part of what we want to make sure that we're supporting in the workplace.
Right, right. And what about God? Has any preference for any business or does not like any business? Suppose if it's if it's an NGO, then will God be much more, much more happier, being prayed for that? And God will not be happy if they are, say, if it's some arms factory, and somebody is praying for its success, because that would mean God would not. How do you look at it, looking at the present state of our world?
That's really interesting. I don't know that I've thought about that too much. I can't say that we've had lots of arms dealers wanting to come and get prayer coverage, so it could be they're self-selecting out. I think there's probably some level where if somebody is actually seeking God, I think that God guides. So at least for now, all of the businesses that have come to us, whether the people are Christians, or meaning the owners are Christians or not, we've seen that God blesses their business, or that He's with them. Not all businesses, I guess, are financially prosperous immediately, and so but the Lord walks with us, whether our businesses are thriving financially or whether it's just a more dry season.
Right. And what is the team composition? If somebody outsources a prayer for themselves, what is the team composition? How long is that deal? Is it for one day, several days, or you think there is more prayer required for the success of such whatever their demand is from God?
Oh, that's a really good question. So when people partner with us, we usually ask them to partner monthly. Especially in the beginning, we even ask for 6 months, just because that allows a time to be in relationship, because our clients, they're in many cases, they're our friends. We get to know them. We care for their business. They tell us the things that their businesses need. So it's never, I don't think I can think of an example where it was just one day. That would be way too short. So we love having the longer time frame. And then our favorite, of course, is when people just say, I actually treasure this, and then they just stay with us for years, because we feel like, oh, then they're getting the ongoing blessing of having prayer coverage for many years, and that, but not everybody chooses to do that, and that's also okay.
Right. What are the challenges in this sort of uh, business, if we may call it, that you face, Amy?
Mm, yeah. So one of the things is that it's just not very well known. So I think people are like, "Oh, that's interesting," and then they maybe move on with their day. So that would be one of the challenges. I think it actually is challenging spiritually. We face resistance. I mean, at least in my worldview, we have both the God who's on our side, and then there's opposition. And so how do we push back against the opposition? I mean, I guess if there was no opposition, people probably wouldn't need prayer coverage, because the world would already be perfect. But because of just the challenges that people face, that's heavy, and it can be heavy. So that's part of what we train our people, is to say, how do you not carry the heaviness beyond the time that you're supposed to?
Absolutely, absolutely. Though, in my personal understanding, I don't think it should be a difficulty for people to accept that this thing can work, because when I say the same thing to you, Emmy, I will send you a lot of prayers, a lot of blessings for your well being. People immediately acknowledge it, understand it, and believe it. But
Yeah.
if you say somebody else is praying for you, maybe a little bit of exchange for their money and services, we have that hesitancy. So it's all about belief. The day we believe, every prayer becomes a blessing, whether paid or not paid. Now, my next question is to you, Amy, is to understand. Now, businesses are business. They always look at something called return on investment. That this is the money I'm spending. This is the output I'm getting. What about prayers? Do they ask, Amy, how will I know whether my prayer has been successful or not successful, and that it is all money gone down the drain? Do they think? I know people will look at it, but just to understand it from that point of view.
Absolutely. So this is one of my favorite parts about praying for businesses, is that people actually, our clients, they do understand about return on investment. And so if they don't feel like they're getting a good return on investment, then they don't stay with us. I mean, there's maybe a few who feel like, I just, feel like this is good just because it's doing good in the world. But most business owners don't have money to just kind of be throwing at things because they think it's nice. They actually do need to see a return on investment. And that's been one of our challenges from the beginning. We can't assume that, or I guess I could say we can't guarantee that, because The only thing we can guarantee is that we're praying every day. And so that, and we're very faithful about that, very faithful to do that. But we can't guarantee that the Lord is going to work in any particular way. So that's basically just one of our challenges to him, is to say, if this is something that you like, is, God, if you like having more prayer in the workplace, then you need to come through and actually give a good return on investment for our clients.
Right, right, Amy. As I said, in India, it is not a very difficult thing for people to understand in our day-to-day lives. We try to do a lot of things ourselves, but many a times, if someone is not well, somebody finds it difficult, paucity of time, or in a situation, friends or family, then they can tell it to the priests, and they can do it on their behalf. And with their invoking their name, their family's name, their ancestors' name, and everything, and they fully believe that it is going to help. And it happens in so many cases everywhere. And I'm sure, but businesses also, they do it in their own premises, and a lot of times, they do tell others to pray for them, and it works very well, because priests have a certain way of doing it. There are certain chants invoke, and if you want, you can be a part of it. But if you think that for you it will be difficult to stay the whole day, you be only for some time, and then but the prayers will go on. And as God is always there, God is everywhere, he will continue to bless. God always blesses, but then it is always better to remember God, even especially when things are going well, because those will be a part of your bank balance, and God will certainly help better in that position. What be that as it may, that's my understanding. But for this, a lot of people would want to learn from you, about this whole business, so that they can do better in their business. So, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Amy?
Oh, thank you. Just probably going to our website, workplaceprayer.com, is going to be the best option.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.